Think in Multicolored Hues. Chapter 1. My ideas on how I think. How to live and think. Follow your true nature. It will lead you to truth for your life. Whatever your Creator God endowed you with, that's your truth. Your purpose in life is to discover whatever is original and inspired within yourself, then use it up every day for your own benefit, to invigorate yourself and to help other people somehow with these natural abilities you have. The system wants you to pick from among the options it offers, like the majors at college and the regular jobs out there at a young age, but a full, examined life doesn't work like that. You do what naturally interests you, then at some point in time, you intuitively feel what your life's purpose is. It's not about picking from the X number of career options the system offers you after you graduate from high school. It's about exploring your life until you find something that you really like to do that can earn you a living. The capitalist system wants you to declare a career path right away at 18 and get on with it. The result of this way of thinking is a lot of unhappy people who don't feel happy with their career or lives in general, simply because they're not doing much to release their inherent natural energy every day, which is what a great life is, constantly releasing your natural energy with joy for the process. This self-betrayal is the biggest cause of misery in the modern, Western world that almost no one is aware of or talks about. Just express what you feel in your soul. You need guts to do this in the cookie-cutter world we live in, where we're taught that a great life is imitating what we see on TV that's marketed to us as cool and successful. The truth is that cool is having the confidence to be who you really are, unbrainwashed by the world. Do not listen to the false, lying, useless knowledge geared to indoctrinate you like most of the so-called liberal arts, humanities, social science psychobabble out there, most of which was created in the past 50 years. I wonder how humanity managed to get along before all this fake knowledge came on the scene? Learn to separate fake knowledge from true wisdom, then develop a system to live by it. All you have to do every day when you wake up is to make a commitment to release most of your natural energy to match or exceed the inherent standard you should feel within yourself of who you were born to be and who you want to be. Life is lived like this, one day at a time. It's not like all the glitter and so-called glamour you see on TV all the time. Don't listen to the false idols and ideals of the world too much. Listen to your pure self. Freedom is expressing your free spirit to its fullest with love for the process. There are the artificial values of the world and your true nature. Most people live by the artificial values of the world, which causes a sense of disharmony somewhere within themselves, even if they are successful by the standards of the world. Use the knowledge of the world to better your life, but don't buy into anything beyond mathematics and the hard sciences without critically analyzing it. When they're trying to teach you culture in grade school or in college, be like me. I say that's somebody else's ideas, not mine, which is why I rarely listen to much of it. What I do listen to or watch on TV I mostly dismiss as minor, meaningless entertainment. Almost nothing out there intrigues me or inspires me. My inspiration is all inside of me, in my own thoughts and actions. Constantly contemplate your life and the state of the world. Analyze the situation, come to conclusions based on intuition and logic, then act on them. Logic by itself is not always right, the process of gathering all the facts then analyzing them to come to a rational conclusion. You have to factor in what your raw gut emotions tell you to do. Learn from mistakes and errors in judgment. Learn from knowledge that others have gathered and created before you. Don't judge others or compare yourself to them. Just worry about yourself and the fulfillment of your life's purpose through the release of your natural, inspired, aesthetic, loving, sensual energy. Unite with like-minded people to do things and make money if you find people who share your views. You can only live 1 hour at a time, which is why sorrow about the past or worries about the future don't mean anything. Life is always the challenge to release your natural energy to stay close to who you were born with the potential to be and want to be. If you don't live like this, you're just another generic spectator consumer. Listen to yourself purely. Don't get bound up in delusional fantasies about what others might think of you if you do something that gets you on TV or achieve something that the system gives you an award for. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. All that really matters is earning your own self-respect for you, not for anybody out there who you might give some control over you because you want their approval. Respect people who help you. Ignore the slovenly, gluttonous, selfish, greedy people as much as you can. The less you deal with them, the less they'll be able to exploit you or pollute your mind. Make no assumptions. Take nothing for granted. Create your life as you go along. Your purpose in life is to honor who you were born with, the potential to be for a purpose that goes beyond personal ambition to help others in some way. You can never fulfill yourself or reach a point where you're enlightened and have lots of money, and that's it, because the only truly enlightened people know they have to honor themselves every day by releasing most of their natural inspired energy one day at a time, and that's always hard, or at least challenging and stimulating. That's the only way to constantly earn your self-respect and feel good, do tough, challenging, inspiring, euphoric, joyful things. If you don't, you really have no life beyond being a generic consumer spectator, which might seem like fun according to the commercials on TV, always pushing you to buy more stuff and fill yourself up with more meaningless pop culture entertainment. But your debt to the God who created you is to become the finest example of his handiwork as you can be. If you don't live like this, you're just another one of the dull, timid, scared, huddled masses without the guts to try to touch transcendence and perfect freedom with their lives. Peace of mind is when you're following your true nature, not trying to be something you're not as defined by the world. Happiness is not a behavior. It's a sense of self, a sense of wholeness and satisfaction. Follow your true nature and happiness will come on its own, without you trying to impose it upon yourself. You have to figure out what you love to do and do it all the time. It's the only way to live a relaxed, harmonious life. Don't complicate your life with the artificial ideas the world is trying to sell you. Listen to your true nature and live by it. You can live in the world without selling your soul to it. Some things you will never know the answers to for sure, like where did we come from, is there life after death, is there a God, are extraterrestrials visiting Earth, is there such a thing as ghosts, etc. So don't waste your life pondering them. Live in the moment. Deal with the hereafter when you die. Honor yourself because the spirit of life, aka your creator God, honored you by giving you life. Honor the world because God created it and it's all you got, that you know for sure. Live with courage, not fear. The less news you watch or read, the less you allow the negativity of the world to invade your purity. I'm aware of what's going on in the world, but I only watch a few minutes of the news here and there once or twice a week. When you share knowledge, it can multiply. A little bit of knowledge can drastically improve someone's life. Experience in life as you live it, followed by an analysis of your experiences, is a better teacher than reading books or listening to others. If you're really ambitious, think that you were put on this earth by God for an important, specific, special purpose, to do something great to help humanity that only you can fulfill, and live that way, thinking and acting as though you have a great purpose and the world needs you to do it. To feel strong even when you're weak, never stop thinking like this. You are a servant of truth, knowledge, and wisdom to help yourself live a great life and help the world, hopefully with love for the human race in your heart, even though this could be difficult because every human being has been betrayed by other human beings at some point in time, which tends to make us cynical and give up on humanity. Personally, I think the only hope for the human race is genetic engineering, but I still continue to live with optimism simply because it enables me to live a good to great life regardless of how screwed up the world and the people are around me. I don't waste my time judging the shortcomings of the world or the follies people commit. I focus on releasing my natural energy in a positive, intense way to give me feelings of joy and fulfillment. I'm open to the good stuff out in the world, but I ignore the negativity as much as I can. I stay close to my true nature and continue to learn positive, practical, and inspirational knowledge, which I write about in these super books. When you help others, you help yourself because it makes you feel good and they might show you some gratitude by doing nice things for you. As long as you're true to yourself by trying to honor whatever is natural inside of you, you're never wrong. You're always on the right path, doing the right thing. Your friends are people like you who are trying to live positive, great lives. I try to minimize contact with generic people. I have nothing in common with them. I don't want them polluting me with their meaningless, frivolous bullshit about sports scores, celebrity gossip, the next pop idol or top model, fashion, materialism, good-tasting junk food, internet chatter, YouTube videos, computer games, the so-called mainstream news, the politics of the two main parties to the exclusion of everyone else, etc. Aimless people who don't do anything much beyond consume things and watch pop culture entertainment are confused and out of harmony with themselves on a deep level, because in order to be happy, you have to be purposeful and proud that you're releasing your natural energy all the time. If you don't constantly release your natural energy, your sense of self-betrayal shoots way up and you intuitively feel you're dishonoring yourself. This is the only real freedom, to try to do what you intuitively feel you were born to do with passion and gusto for the process. Treat your life with reverence. Be bold enough to strive to live a glorious life. Love this life the Creator God gave you. Live a relaxed life following your true nature. You cannot win against the powerful marketing forces of the capitalist pop culture machine. It controls the minds and souls of most people. The world's forces, meaning the corporate industrial infrastructure, want you to be a good obedient worker clone who takes his paycheck and pacifies himself by buying lots of material things he doesn't need and filling his mind up with meaningless pop culture entertainment. That's the perfect citizen to them, the passive consumer spectator who always wants more useless junk. The best you can do is stay pure within yourself and find a handful of friends and allies to be your kindred spirits. Everyone else has been massively polluted by the artificial values of the world. The funny thing is that they look down on you because they think you're weird for not playing the game of the world like them, which they think is the cool, successful way to be. They follow what they see on TV and parrot it. Figure out a way to earn a living by doing something you love to do anyway, that's a part of your true nature that can help people in some way. Serve the truth, which is what you intuitively feel with yourself. You are nothing more or less than who your Creator God made you to be by nature. All you have to do is honor it without sacrificing your life to the artificial values of the world system. How to learn anything. Learning is active and creative. After you learn something for the first time, you have to revisit that material and think about it at least several times. It takes time. You have to be actively engaged in it. Be interested in the subject matter. Be creative. Think about it. It's motivation, inspiration, and repetition. Mull it through. Play with it. Think about it. Be energetic, emotional, and enthusiastic about it. Don't be stressed out. Learning takes a relaxed, peaceful mind. If I had important material to learn, I thought about it while I jogged. Practical wisdom websites. aflourishinglife.com, practical wisdom for clarity, freedom, and happiness. Practical-wisdom.meetup.com, practical wisdom meetups. Practicalwisdomforparents.com. ramtha.com, Ram the School of Enlightenment. Practicallywisdom.blogspot.com. Learn What Matters website / Learn What Is Important websites. alllearningmatters.com. learnhowtolearn.com. lifeoptimizer.org. mindflash.com. Be a great thinker. A great thinker steps outside of himself, his or her self-centered egocentricity, to see life and the world objectively as both a rational and compassionate thinker. A rational thinker gathers as many facts as he can about any situation, not opinion. He or she gathers cold, hard scientific, objective facts from the only real hardcore objective subjects, math and science, and what actually happened in a situation. Social science theory or social science expert opinion should not count in being a great thinker simply because they're all full of crap, hiding behind those nutty theories they created like a bunch of clones pretending to be experts. Do you believe in some lurid hidden entity within yourself called the subconscious mind? Isn't the subconscious mind simply your long-term memory? It takes some effort to retrieve past memories, not because you are repressed but because the human brain has limited retrieval capabilities. What about economists? Get 10 knuckleheads in a room. They will give you 10 different answers on how to heal the economy, all of them wrong, their answers as valid as any knucklehead on the street. Never believe any so-called expert in any social science field blindly. Listen to what they say, then make your own decision. If you come across a so-called social science expert, first take a look at them. Does the person look like they are trying to live a vital, inspired life? Most of these people are so brainwashed by the theories in their field that they cannot see plain, common sense truth. They will always try to protect their field of study even if it's full of crap. Once you gather your facts, think about them, then make the best decision you can with the facts you got. You can make one decision based on logic alone. Is this the best thing to do? Make a second decision based on emotion. What is the best course of action to cause the least amount of injury, pain, and damage to the most people possible, or lead to the greatest amount of happiness in the most people possible? In World War II, they had to make hard decisions. They knew they were sending most pilots to their deaths, but they didn't tell them that. The bigger picture was to win the war. The only way to do it was high casualty numbers, at least at first. We, the Allies, had to kill off the enemy by sacrificing our own pilots while putting a stranglehold around the Axis countries so that over time, they had no pilots or planes left while we kept sending pilots and planes, mostly from the United States. In this situation, a compassionate man never would have sent thousands of pilots off to die, but a rational man knew he had to win the war by sending many pilots out there until they gradually killed off the Nazi pilots. Which one is right? The general who says we have to win the war even if it costs 200,000 American lives, or the compassionate guy who says let's try other ways to win the war, like cut off their oil and use cunning tactics like go up through Spain and cut France in two, thus making it easy to pick off the Nazis in the West cut off from their supply lines? The Normandy invasion was crazy. There must have been an easier way to invade Europe. I don't have all the facts in the situation. Whoever made those decisions must have either known something I don't know or were cold-hearted in their ambition to win the war. I think the Normandy invasion was the stupidest decision ever made in modern times by someone with power. They picked the most heavily mined, heavily fortified area in the whole world. There were 100 other easier ways to win the war. A truly wise man would not have made a decision to attack the enemy head-on at their strongest point because it was not necessary to sacrifice all those lives. A great thinker always does what's right to help the most people he or she can, even if it goes against what big business interests want or big hots with big egos who want to be in the limelight. Southern France was a big beach. They could have waltzed into there and walked to Paris with no resistance. Italy, Holland, Belgium, Denmark, and Greece were all cakewalks by then. Britain controlled Gibraltar. Spain's new dictator Carlos would have wanted to ally with the future winners of the war, which everyone knew was the Allies, because it was Germany against the world. There is no way Germany could defeat multi-millions of possible soldiers and equipment from India, Africa, Canada, Australia, Jamaica, etc. Normandy was the most fortified piece of real estate in the whole world at the time. The Allied generals went in with guns a-blazing to a tremendous loss of life. It looked good in the newsreels because they got into France, but it was really a tragedy. All those young men died for some general's vanity. What would a great thinker do in that situation? If you were in the war room when George W. Bush decided to attack Iraq as portrayed in the movie W, what would you have said? Would you have agreed with the warmongers and cast a positive vote, or would you have told the truth, which is that if we create 100% of our energy needs ourselves, we don't need to mess around over there, so why not spend all that war money building alternative energy machines? Let's say you were the president of your country. The country has not been attacked by foreign invaders in hundreds of years, yet they spend billions of dollars on the military every year. This is Canada. The United States had only one attack at Pearl Harbor as far as I know. In Costa Rica, they got rid of their military to spend that money on social programs. That is what a great thinker would do. We elect leaders that cannot think greatly, therefore cannot make great decisions that will help lots of people live better lives. We elect leaders from supposedly liberal-thinking political parties who help big business interests over helping the people and never breathe a word about why we have a military force at all, considering we have no enemies lurking at our borders. All great thinkers see tragedies every day. It would be so easy to solve our problems and be prosperous, but great thinkers in general are people not willing to sell their souls to get political power, so the end result is a great tragedy everywhere, because vain people sell their souls to get political power, then do anything to stay there, which includes trampling over the people who need their help the most. Who is an experimental learner? An experimental learner is some naive kid that wants to learn the answers to life. Read my book A Free Spirit, search for Enlightenment, then go to the websites in the Great Thinker website section of my education book. Science and Spirit / Logic and Emotion / Intuition / Left vs. Right Brain. I don't believe in making anyone a heroic idol. I don't believe the myth of Albert Einstein as a genius. He worked in a patent office. I'm sure he borrowed some ideas from there, just like Marconi and Edison ripped Nikola Tesla off. Anyway, the story is that there are all kinds of quotes attributed to Einstein saying that when you discover this natural, intuitive creative force, spirit, or voice inside of you, that's when you're really enlightened. Most people can learn logic, how to strip any situation down to its facts, then make a decision based on facts only. It's this incubation, spiritual thing going on in the brain that you come to insights like when I walk for a while. Solutions come up to what I'm currently dealing with. Your thoughts create you. You become what you think and do day after day. The way you think is the way you live. Regardless of how desperate life is, you determine how you deal with it. Consciousness is the life force. Stress is bad. Don't obsess over anything. In the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible, Solomon says it's not wise to think, analyze, and ponder on anything too much. You can't solve the world's problems, so don't destroy yourself thinking about them too much. Your brain chemistry is determined by what you eat and how active you are. The strongest people listen to their own standard given by God. They don't buy into the world's BS. Meditation is simply being peaceful, listening to yourself. The subconscious mind is a fraud for those phony people called therapists to make money. I am who I am right here, right now. We become what we think and do. Exercise your mental imagery when you masturbate. BrainConnection.com. Chapter 2. Be a great thinker. It's easy. Think. The Golden Rule of Enlightenment / How to be a Great Thinker. The golden rule of enlightenment is to know that you have a purity, essence, and soul given to you by your Creator God when you were born. This soul has innate wisdom within it of who you want to be, what you should and how you should live. You will get brainwashed by the artificial values of the world. It is pretty well impossible not to in a capitalist, pop culture world where the mass media is blaring other people's ideas at you all the time. Granted, grade school and other formal schooling is good to help give you a basic ability to make your way in the world, but they are indoctrinating forces too. If you are one of the few people who ends up enlightened, you gradually get over all of your cultural indoctrination to realize you stand alone in the world as an autonomous, independent thinker. You think your own thoughts and act on them. Your wisdom and intelligence comes from 3 sources. 1. The innate wisdom you were born with. 2. Experience in the world followed by analysis of it. 3. Reading books, watching TV, going to school, etc., all filtered by your autonomous sense of wisdom. You don't give your mind up to any false idols and lies out there for sale in society. You do not buy into the lie that is the linchpin of modern psychology, the idea that you have a subconscious mind, a part of you hidden away from your conscious thoughts that guides you without you knowing it. There is nothing mysterious guiding you that you don't know about. Your consciousness right this very minute is your reality. Your entire store of knowledge is in your long-term memory. You retrieve it by thinking about it. It's not hidden, mysterious knowledge with motives of its own. It's your life knowledge. You control it by what you retrieve out of it. That's it. Don't buy into what society defines as knowledge and wisdom in the so-called social science subjects. You are a clear thinker. You know your own identity. You know where your own thoughts start and where the world's agenda tries to get its hooks into you, which never happens because you easily pick apart all attempts by people, organizations, advertisers, institutions, and other entities trying to manipulate your thoughts. You know what the absolute rules of morality are, what you must do not just to avoid arrest but to respect all life other than your own. Your purpose is to honor your true nature, which is your soul, by releasing most of the natural energy in it every day. You always have the vision of who you were born to be in your mind's eye, which you fulfill every day, one day at a time, by releasing most of your natural energy to that end. Enlightened people spend most of their time thinking their own thoughts, focusing on their purpose and acting on it. I spend some time listening to the radio and watching TV pretty well every day, but it's minor background stuff to me which I do while I'm engaged in other activities. I like a good laugh on gag and prank shows. I don't want to deal with all that mainstream news crap where they're telling us the world is going to hell in a handbasket every day, so I don't watch it much. If I'm up, I'll watch the first minute of CNN's headline show at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. That's their big hour. They always talk about whatever is happening right now. Most of the time I turn the channel after I check it out. I read that the average young person spends 11.7 hours a day tapped into some manner of mass media. Where is the time for exploring their own lives by thinking their own thoughts to see where it leads them? No wonder we live in a society of massively indoctrinated lost souls. If you replace your own personal truth with the truth that MTV is feeding you, it ends up in a great tragedy: some brainwashed chick trying to act like chicks in music videos, or guys trying to act like rockers complete with chemical addictions. Question everything until you realize every institution and every person are potentially corrupt, then simply go along and live your life immune to the BS of the world. When you're enlightened, everything you do comes down to being true to your soul. There are no really hard decisions to make. You just live every day true to yourself by releasing most of the natural energy in your free spirit. Be compassionate and kind to others, especially weak people and the less fortunate. A noble person helps others. You should have no need for status or recognition in the community. You shouldn't care what other people think of you, or if they think of you at all. You should not seek fame for its own sake. You don't need it. Your happiness and self-worth is already inside of you. Just do what you feel is right by the power in your soul. The past means nothing. Don't be nostalgic for it or blame your failings on it. Know within yourself that you are powerful and have great ideas to help the world, even if the world is too stupid to listen to you. Many great people were ahead of their time. After they died, their ideas were adopted. We live in a world where a few forces control most of the power, and they don't want to let anyone else in, even if they have good ideas. Here is an example of 3 ideas I've been trying to get out into the world for the past several years. 1. My People Power Program for true democracy: get rid of elected chambers, replace them with professional ombudsmen to help the people deal with the government. People vote on the bills individually online and create their own. peoplepower.co.cc. 2. Looking for an investor or organization to get a worldwide car cab service started, where we take drunk drivers and their cars home by using either 2 cab drivers or tow trucks. 3. Make smoking, doing drugs, and drinking alcohol while pregnant a crime. Anyone can report it by calling 911. The police investigate. If the pregnant woman has alcohol, nicotine, or recreational drugs in her body, she is arrested. The first arrest is a warning. The second arrest is 30 days detention. The third arrest is detention until the baby is born. Most people learn from the belief system of their society, then stick with it for life, even though it's stupid to an outsider. We think it's stupid for Hindus to worship some of their weird-looking gods, but we do the same things as Christians: Mary, Jesus, the 12 apostles, etc. The mind is free only to the extent that it is in command of itself. The world really is fucked. Most people are massively brainwashed even though no one will ever admit to it. Get a bunch of good songs for your MP3 player, move, take action, don't stop, dance to the pulse of your life, purge the music in your soul. If you do this, you will live the best life you possibly can. Natural enthusiasm is the key to learning. Natural enthusiasm beats all the psychobabble and the programs and workshops they come up with, subject to the child's creative intellectual limits. Love learning and you'll go as far as you can go at it. Learning was a natural part of my true nature. I couldn't understand the guys who tried to act like they didn't like school or that it was cool to disrespect what we did in class. I created the book A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment to describe my life's journey in discovering that following my true nature is as enlightened as I can possibly be, a big part of which is to release most of my creative intellectual energy every day. If you want to be a great student and scholar, don't focus on tests, marks, facts, and assignments, focus on your intrinsic love for the subject matter. I do what I love because it's fun and interesting to me. I learn because it helps make me the champion of my life and it makes me feel good every day when I create books like this one. These two activities earn me some self-respect and make me feel good every day. If the kid is not naturally intellectually curious and expressing his creative ideas by 5 years old, get some books and start taking him to the library every 2 weeks. It should be an interesting place for him, to look through all those books there in the children's section. When life is a big, fun adventure, people will learn anything easily relative to their cognitive limits. Scientists do a bunch of experiments like 1. Brain scans on people to track which parts of the brain light up using functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI. 2. Neuroimaging to track dopamine and endorphin release. They get people to do a bunch of different mental activities, then observe the brain scans to see what happens in the brain. The results are that there is greater brain activity and dopamine release when subjects/students are playing, laughing, writing, mastering and participating in high-interest activities. This confirms my theory of life in A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment and reduces the entire field of educational psychology into one idea: do what naturally interests and inspires you. To learn dull stuff, dress it up, make it fun and challenging to learn it. Why do I remember grammar rules I learned in grade 3? Because I loved learning. Nothing was dull to me at that age. It was all a big fun adventure. Nikola Tesla, an example of an original thinking genius. Nikola Tesla was a great thinker with his own ideas about harnessing electrical and magnetic power. He was true to his nature and lived by the power he felt within himself. I believe everybody has something original and inspired within themselves that they were born with, but it's brainwashed out of most of us as we're taught to try to succeed by going to college to get a dull job within the conventional establishment. If you want to see how a creative thinking intellectual thinks, which might inspire you to seek out and discover the original, inspired power within yourself, read articles and books by and about Tesla at bibliotecapeliads.net. Go to the Index by Areas section. Click on the Researchers section. Click on Tesla, Nikola. pbs.org/Tesla. tfcbooks.com. amazing1.com/tesla.htm. Nikola Tesla's amazing mind. Tesla's mind always seemed to be under an explosive pressure. An avalanche of ideas was forever straining for release. The following article goes from about page 220 to 232 in Prodigal Genius, The Life of Nikola Tesla, by John J. O'Neill, July 1944. The memory departments of most individuals' brains are like office filing systems, an excellent dumping ground for everything that comes along, but try to find a filed item later. Tesla's powers of memorizing were prodigious. A quick reading of a page gave him a permanent record of it. He could always recall before his eyes a photographic record of it to be read and could study at his convenience. Study, for Tesla, was a far different process than for the average person. He had no need for a reference library. He could consult in his mind any page of any textbook he had read, any formula, equation, or item in a table of logarithms, and it would flash before his eyes. He could recite scores of books, complete from memory. The saving in time which this made possible in research work was tremendous. This strange faculty of vision was supernormal but entirely natural, and was due, probably, to a structural characteristic in his brain which provided a direct channel between the memory and the visual areas of his cerebral hemispheres. It provided him with a very useful new sense. The human brain is made up of two sections, the right and left sides, each of which, in some of its phases, is a complete brain, and both halves function together as a single unit. There are many layers in the brain parallel with its surface, each connected to the others by complex nerve fibers, like threads sewing together the layers of an onion. The outer layer seems to be directly associated with our consciousness. The surface is divided into specialized areas. There is a band across the midsection of each hemisphere from ear to ear over the top of the brain, devoted to the senses, and here are separate areas for the sensory faculties: sight, hearing, taste, smell, while nearby are regions for the motor or muscular activities of the various parts of the body. The back lobe of the brain appears to be the home of the memory, and the front lobe of some higher faculties of integration, the nature of which we do not as yet understand. In normal processes of seeing, the eye forms a picture of an object on the retina, a screen on the back of the eyeball. The retina is supplied with thousands of nerve endings all packed together like stalks of asparagus in a bunch. The tip ends are provided with photosensitive processes, and when light strikes any one of them, it transmits over the optic nerve a signal to the brain which is recorded as a visual response in the sight area of each half of the brain. By cooperation of all the nerve endings, the complete picture seen is transmitted. The actual seeing, then, is done in the brain and not in the eye. When an object is seen by the brain, a record of that visual experience is transmitted from the sight area of the brain to the memory center in the back part of the brain, and similar records are sent by all other sensory centers. Ordinarily this is a one-way process, the stimuli going in the direction of the memory and nothing coming back to the sensory area. If this were not so, our sense areas of the brain would be continuously reenacting old experiences and mixing them with the new, incoming experiences, causing annoying confusion. The memory area contains a complete record of all sensory experiences we have had. In our thinking processes we use some little understood mechanism for connecting together items stored in the memory area to produce useful combinations or relationships, or, in other words, new ideas. The memory appears to function on a subconscious level, but we seem to be able to activate fibers that reach down to the desired strata at the right point to connect the memory level with the consciousness level. In this way we can recall experiences, but this experience of memory is far different from the original experience of sight out of which the original memory record was made. If, however, in this process of recollection, the nerve fiber linking the sight area of the brain and the memory area were to be activated, then we would see again by the sharp processes of vision the object which caused the memory record we are trying to recollect. The act of creative thinking seems to consist of assembling two or more memory records of sensory experiences into a combination which possesses entirely new characteristics that were not apparent in the component parts. If the nerve linkage just referred to were to operate in a two-way process with the visual area, then we would be able to see the new creation as if it were a really existing object seen by the eye, although the whole operation was limited to the brain. This process is hypothetically the one which took place in Tesla's brain and gave him tremendously greater powers of creative work than are possible to the ordinary individual. Was this conceivably a new invention made by Mother Nature and tried out by her on Tesla? Tesla himself never understood the neurological, or physiological, processes underlying this strange faculty. To him it was an absolutely real experience to see in front of him as solid objects the subjects of his creative thoughts. He believed that the image of the thing he saw was sent back from the brain along the optic nerve to the eye, and that it existed as a picture on the retina where, by some suitable means, it could be seen by others, or that by means of adequate amplifying devices, such as are used in television, it could be projected on a screen. He even proposed such devices. The apparent flaw in his reasoning followed on his mistake in thinking that he was doing the supernormal seeing with his eye, whereas the process was confined to his brain, and the reflex action from the memory centers stopped at the visual centers instead of, as he believed, being continued forward through the optical nerve to the retina. Tesla described his experience with this strange faculty in an interview with M.K. Weishart, published under the title Making Your Imagination Work for You in the American Magazine, April, 1921. He stated, "During my boyhood I had suffered from a peculiar affliction due to the appearance of images, which were often accompanied by strong flashes of light. When a word was spoken, the image of the object designated would present itself so vividly to my vision that I could not tell whether what I saw was real or not. Even though I reached out and passed my hand through it, the image would remain fixed in space. In trying to free myself from these tormenting appearances, I tried to concentrate my thoughts on some peaceful, quieting scene I had witnessed. This would give me momentary relief, but when I had done it 2 or 3 times the remedy would begin to lose its force. Then I began to take mental excursions beyond the small world of my actual knowledge. Day and night, in imagination, I went on journeys, saw new places, cities, countries, and all the time I tried hard to make these imaginary things very sharp and clear in my mind. I imagined myself living in countries I had never seen, and I made imaginary friends, who were very dear to me and really seemed alive. This I did constantly until I was 17, when my thoughts turned seriously to invention. Then, to my delight, I found I could visualize with the greatest facility. I needed no models, drawings, or experiments. I could picture them all in my mind. By that faculty of visualizing, which I learned in my boyish efforts to rid myself of annoying images, I have evolved what is, I believe, a new method of materializing inventive ideas and conceptions. It is a method which may be of great usefulness to any imaginative man, whether he is an inventor, businessman, or artist. Some people, the moment they have a device to construct or any piece of work to perform, rush at it without adequate preparation and immediately become engrossed in details, instead of the central idea. They may get results, but they sacrifice quality. Here, in brief, is my own method. After experiencing a desire to invent a particular thing, I may go on for months or years with the idea in the back of my head. Whenever I feel like it, I roam around in my imagination and think about the problem without any deliberate concentration. This is a period of incubation. Then follows a period of direct effort. I choose carefully the possible solutions of the problem. I am considering and gradually center my mind on a narrowed field of investigation. Now, when I am deliberately thinking of the problem in its specific features, I may begin to feel that I am going to get the solution. And the wonderful thing is, that if I do feel this way, then I know I have really solved the problem and shall get what I am after. The feeling is as convincing to me as though I already had solved it. I have come to the conclusion that at this stage the actual solution is in my mind subconsciously, though it may be a long time before I am aware of it consciously. Before I put a sketch on paper, the whole idea is worked out mentally. In my mind I change the construction, make improvements, and even operate the device. Without ever having drawn a sketch I can give the measurements of all parts to workmen, and when completed all these parts will fit, just as certainly as though I had made the actual drawings. It is immaterial to me whether I run my machine in my mind or test it in my shop. The inventions I have conceived in this way have always worked. In 30 years there has not been a single exception. My first electric motor, the vacuum tube wireless light, my turbine engine, and many other devices have all been developed in exactly this way. That Tesla believed his mental visualizations brought images from his brain to the back of his eye is indicated by some statements he made in his famous lecture before the National Electric Light Association convention at St. Louis, in March, 1893, when announcing his discovery of radio. These statements about vision had no relationship to the subject of the lecture, and the fact that he interjected them indicated that his experiences with this strange power had a powerful influence on his inventive thinking. He said, "It can be taken as a fact, which the theory of the action of the eye implies, that for each external impression, that is for each image produced on the retina, the ends of the visual nerves, concerned in the conveyance of the impressions to the mind, must be under a peculiar stress or in a vibratory state. It now does not seem improbable that, when by the power of thought an image is evoked, a distinct reflex action, no matter how weak, is exerted upon certain ends of the visual nerves and therefore upon the retina. Will it ever be within human power to analyze the condition of the retina, when disturbed by thought or reflex action, by the help of some optical or other means of such sensitiveness that a clear idea of its state might be obtained? If this were possible, then the problem of reading one's thoughts with precision, like the characters of an open book, might be much easier to solve than many problems belonging to the domain of positive physical science, in the solution of which many, if not the majority, of scientific men implicitly believe. Helmholtz has shown that the fundi of the eye are themselves luminous, and he was able to see in total darkness the movements of his arm by the light of his own eyes. This is one of the most remarkable experiments recorded in the history of science, and probably only a few men could satisfactorily repeat it, for it is very likely that the luminosity of the eyes is associated with uncommon activity of the brain and great imaginative power. It is fluorescence of brain action, as it were. Another fact having a bearing on this subject, which has probably been noted by many, since it is stated in popular expressions, but which I cannot recollect to have found chronicled as a positive result of observation, is that, at times, when a sudden idea or image presents itself to the intellect, there is a painful sensation of luminosity produced in the eye, observed even in broad daylight. 40 years later, Tesla was still interested in the possibility of capturing a photographic record of thoughts. He stated in interviews that if his theory were correct that thoughts are recorded on the retina, it should be possible to photograph what is revealed on this screen in the eye and project enlarged images of it. There is nothing illogical about Tesla's reasoning concerning his strange faculty of visualizing and the possibility of finding a corresponding image on the retina. There is a bare possibility that in an extreme case, as was his, a reflex arc may have extended from the brain to the retina, but the probability that it did not is stronger. If he had possessed the ability to take others into his confidence in his experiments, he would have been able to stage some simple tests in the laboratory of an ophthalmologist which would have given him some definite experimental evidence to support or dispose of his theories, as far as photographic thought images were concerned. About 1920 Tesla had prepared, although he never published, an announcement of what he declared was an astounding discovery. It involved factors which he called cosmic, but it likewise presented situations which the practitioners of voodoo in Haiti and other intellectually unveneered portions of the human race would receive with perfect understanding. Since Tesla, one of the most highly civilized individuals, could evolve this conception, it is probable that other supercultured individuals or groups could find it in harmony with their ideas and experiences. It involves, however, a situation in which the soulless matter and energy automaton, to which status we have seen Tesla relegate human beings, is able to judge ethical values, and, like a pontiff presiding over a court of morals, inflict punishment for transgressions. Here is Tesla's description of his astounding discovery. While I have failed to obtain any evidence in support of the contentions of psychologists and spiritualists, I have proved to my complete satisfaction the automatism of life, not only through continuous observation of individual actions, but even more conclusively, through certain generalizations. These amount to a discovery which I consider of the greatest moment to human society and on which I shall briefly dwell. I got the first inkling of this astounding truth when I was still a very young man, but for many years I interpreted what I noted simply as coincidences. Namely, whenever either myself or a person to whom I was attached, or a cause to which I was devoted, was hurt by others in a particular way, which might be best popularly characterized as the most unfair imaginable, I experienced a singular and undefinable pain which, for want of a better term, I have qualified as cosmic, and shortly thereafter and invariably, those who have inflicted it came to grief. After many such cases I confided this to a number of friends, who had the opportunity to convince themselves of the truth of the theory which I have gradually formulated and which may be stated in the following words. Our bodies are of similar construction and exposed to the same external influences. This results in likeness of response and concordance of the general activities on which all our social and other rules and laws are based. We are automata entirely controlled by the forces of the medium, being tossed about like corks on the surface of the water, but mistaking the resultant of the impulses from the outside for free will. The movements and other actions we perform are always life-preservative, and though seemingly quite independent from one another, we are connected by invisible links. So long as the organism is in perfect order, it responds accurately to the agents that prompt it, but the moment there is some derangement in any individual, his self-preservative power is impaired. Everybody understands, of course, that if one becomes deaf, has his eyesight weakened, or his limbs injured, the chances for his continued existence are lessened. But this is also true, and perhaps more so, of certain defects in the brain which deprive the automaton, more or less, of that vital quality and cause it to rush into destruction. A very sensitive and observant being, with his highly developed mechanism all intact and acting with precision in obedience to the changing conditions of the environment, is endowed with a transcending mechanical sense, enabling him to evade perils too subtle to be directly perceived. When he comes in contact with others whose controlling organs are radically faulty, the sense asserts itself and he feels the cosmic pain. The truth of this has been borne out in hundreds of instances, and I am inviting other students of nature to devote attention to this subject, believing that, through combined and systematic effort, results of incalculable value to the world will be attained. Tesla's uncommunicative nature concerning his own intimate experiences has undoubtedly deprived the world of many interesting stories. He was unquestionably an abnormal individual, and of a type that does have what are known as psychic experiences. He was emphatic in his denial that he ever had experiences of that sort, yet he has related incidents that clearly belong in the psychic category. He seemed to be fearful that an admission of psychic experiences would cause him to be misunderstood as supporting spiritualism, or theories that something operates in life other than matter and energy. Whenever he was asked for his philosophy of life, he would elaborate a theory that the human body is a meat machine which responds to external forces. One evening in New York, as Tesla and the author sat in the lobby of the Hotel Governor Clinton, the inventor discussed his meat machine theory. It was a materialistic philosophy typical of the Victorian era. We are, he held, composed of only those things which are identified in the test tube and weighed in the balance. We have only those properties which we receive from the atoms of which our bodies are constructed. Our experiences, which we call life, are a complex mixture of the responses of our component atoms to the external forces of our environment. Such a philosophy has the virtue of simplicity and brevity of presentation, and it lends itself readily to being propounded with a positiveness that reacts on the propounder and transforms his attitude into one of dogmatism, in which emphatically expressed opinion is often confused with and substituted for factual evidence. "I don't believe a word of your theory," I replied to Tesla's exposition, "and, thank God, I am convinced you don't believe a word of it either. The strongest proof I have that your theory is totally inadequate is that Tesla exists. Under your theory we could not have a Tesla. Tesla possesses a creative mind and, in his accomplishments, stands high above all other men. If your theory were correct, we would either all be geniuses like Tesla, or we would all be mental mediocrities living in these meat machines you describe, all responding in the same way to the uniform, inanimate and uncreative external forces." "But we are all meat machines," replied Tesla, "and it happens that I am a much more sensitive machine than other people, and I receive impressions to which they are inert, and I can both understand and interpret these impressions. I am simply a finer automaton than others," he insisted. "This difference, which you admit between yourself and others, Dr. Tesla, completely disproves your theory. From my viewpoint," I responded. "Your sensitiveness would be a purely random incident. In the integration of this randomness, with respect to all individuals, all of us would probably once, possibly very much more frequently, rise to the height of manifesting genius as you have done all your life. Even though the strokes of genius would manifest intermittently, all such individuals would receive the permanent rating as geniuses. Genius does not manifest, even intermittently, in all of us, so your meat machine theory appears, to me, untenable. If you were really frank with me, you would tell me of many experiences you have had, strange experiences, that you could not explain, that do not fit into your meat machine theory and which you have been afraid to discuss with anyone for fear they would misunderstand you and perhaps ridicule you. I, however, will not find these experiences strange and beyond understanding, and one of these days you will open up and tell me about them. As happened whenever I disagreed with him, after that evening I did not see Tesla for a while. In due time, however, I had a great many telephone conversations with him. Our discussion seemed to have brought about a change in his attitude toward me, and the next time I saw him he confided, "Mr. O'Neill, you understand me better than anyone else in the world." I mention this to indicate the correctness of my belief that there was another Tesla hidden within that synthetic individual, the Superman, which Tesla sought to pass off on the public as his real self. I did not, at this time, know about Tesla's astounding discovery, or of some of his experiences about which I later learned. Had I known of these, my discussion with him could have been more specific. Chapter 3. Thinking is a skill and an art form. Reflectional review, the rational thought process to solve problems. My two rules of thinking are reflectional review and the rational thought process. Life is what happens to you during the day called experience, whether at school, work, recreational time with friends or whatever. You're on the move, doing things, not much time for analysis. Many people go home at night and plug into trivial pursuits called pop culture entertainment like the boob tube to distract their minds and never end up thinking much about their lives. Many people are deathly afraid to confront themselves through straight, rational thought. Your greatest teachers are your experiences in the real world, then your analysis of them and a deeper analysis of your life as the global, spiritual entity that it is. You learn by experiencing life, then going home at night, analyzing it and making the appropriate adjustments. Analysis means thinking about everything that happened to you during the day, how you acted with people, how they treated you, how you performed, etc. You incorporate all of this into your main long-term plan and make a short-term plan to take a baby step towards it the next day. You learn what you can from the experiences of the day, then plan out the next day in advance the night before so you will be ready for it and know exactly what you have to do to get to where you want in life. The way to think things through is not haphazardly in a sloppy fashion, it's by employing the rational thought process. The rational thought process is a method of thinking put forth by the ancient Greek philosophers. It's a logical way to approach problems, but don't rob yourself of your true essence, which are your emotions and attitudes. These always figure prominently when trying to figure something out and often lead to intuition/insight, so bring them into the equation, which consists of the following steps. Identify the real problem or situation clearly. Get all the information you can about it. Think about it, consider all the options. Analyze the probable consequences of such actions. Make a decision based on logical thought and one based on emotional thought. Consider a compromise option. Choose your action, either the right logical decision or a wrong, emotional one. Live with the consequences. You must analyze the problem devoid of all emotion in a rational, logical way based on all the information that you have. You then make a rational decision based on all the facts. If you have all the facts, your decision will be the correct course of action you should take. If you don't have all the facts, your final decision may be flawed. After you analyze it rationally, think about the problem from your emotional point of view. If your emotions are strong enough, they may sway or override the rational decision that you've made. We are creatures of emotion, and emotion plays a big role in many of the actions we take. Determine whether your emotions will change that decision, and if so, will it be worth it if you acted on it? What will be the outcome if you act on your emotions rather than rational judgment? You must make a decision, then take the action that you deem appropriate. Be ready for the consequences either way. In any case, the rational decision based on only the facts without your emotions getting in the way is usually the way you should tackle the problem. Positive use of freedom, but you have the freedom of will to go against this and act in any way you want. Negative use of freedom, and face possible consequences because you didn't act in the right way based on the rational decision. This is the rational thought process and should be used to analyze any major and even minor problems you encounter in life. Commit it to memory. It's very simple to understand and remember. Just get all the facts together, analyze them, come to what you know is the right, logical solution, then decide whether you'll follow it or go against it. Some people call it meditation, some call it contemplation or introspection. It doesn't matter what it's called, the point of it all is that you get in touch with your true inner nature devoid of all the outside distractions each and every day. It's called being a thoughtful person, and it's the closest to your soul as you will ever get, so the point is, don't mindlessly sit in the front of the tube every night and let it fill your soul up. Focus on your own life, think about it, make decisions, then act on them as you live your life the next day. Solving a problem info. Solving a problem means defining it, researching it, coming up with possible solutions, testing them if possible, then picking the best one. If that one doesn't work, repeat the process. Even the toughest problem is solvable, at least to some degree if you're willing to work at it. Thinking about the problem may spit out an answer through incubation, which is your mind working beneath your conscious reality. Solving some problems are achieved by talking to others in a community atmosphere. GeraldMWeinberg.com. The first and most crucial step to solving any problem is determining what exactly the problem is. Decision psychology info. Whenever you have a problem, here is what to do. 1. Define it as specifically as you can. 2. List all the possible solutions you can think of. 3. Know your own identity, what you want out of life. Any decision you make about anything important must be made from your own personal point of view as to who you are, what your beliefs and values are. 4. List moral implications. If applicable to any of the solutions, would any of them go against your moral values? 5. Is there a good possibility that unforeseen events can happen that would change your mind about what is the best solution? For example, suppose you want to start a beachfront business somewhere, but an oil rig is pumping oil a few miles out. There is a chance of an oil spill. Should that affect your final decision? What things could go wrong? What could happen that could be a lucky break? How about the weather, the economy, a global epidemic, political turmoil, war, the invention of new products, a change in demographics, falling in love, getting a divorce, etc. Keep options open. Diversify to share risk across several options rather than just one. 6. Consider possible future outcomes of each solution. 7. Evaluate the possible positive outcome of each solution against the possibility of a negative uncertain event ruining it. 8. Make your decision. 9. Take action. 10. Live with it. Don't have regrets. You make a decision. It might not turn out perfectly, but that is life. Keep going. Most problems in life are minor. Make a quick decision and move on. Think the big problems through before you act on them. Some situations are emergencies. You do not have the luxury of time to think it through. Use your intuition and quick analysis. Make a decision and go with it. Suppose your spouse gets injured. You live 10 miles from the hospital. What do? Wait for the ambulance or drive her yourself? Make the decision and do it. Don't waste time pondering what to do. She might die in the meantime. Mix your intuition with analysis. You can improve analysis by being able to separate fact from opinion, hype, propaganda, or manipulation. Being creative will help you generate alternative solutions that other people might not see. There is an element of empathy or righteousness involved with many decisions. If you are in a situation where you can make a lot of money in a real estate deal but it would mean demolishing a low-cost apartment for seniors, what would you do? What if you are ordered to dig up dirt on one of your boss's competitors who is a decent person? When you make a decision that will affect other people, see it from their point of view too. There is a lot of analysis involved in trying to solve problems to make the right decisions, but life is also an aesthetic adventure. For some people, it's about following their souls. Situations don't require hard analysis. It's all about keeping the ride of inspired energy going, so the morale is don't be too analytical. Sometimes it's more fun when you're at a crossroads to take the road less traveled. The Thinking Summer Camp/Thinking Workshop. I stumbled on this thinking skills summer camp that said it was geared to make you a master thinker. The more I read about the program, the more I realized that it was a mix of thinking skills as in academic thinking and dealing with life, which would be more in the modern-day psychobabble, self-help mode. Here is a summary of an expensive thinking course. They deal with each of these issues for about half a day. Simply create an essay on each on your own. How do you empathize with others, feel for other people? Can you sense moods in others, in a group? Do you think in terms of morality, knowing intuitively what is right and wrong from an innate spiritual wisdom within yourself? Do you know what you don't know? Where are you a paradox and hypocrite in your life, like saying you're not gay yet being aroused by same-gender bodies, or saying you're a healthy eater yet you're an overweight tub of crap? How about saying you're frugal yet your closet is full of clothes you don't need? Where is your standard of goodness versus selfishness? Your purpose in life is a life of purpose. What's yours? What is a clear thinker? Do you know what your priorities are? Do you shut out the distractions? How do you keep your life simple? Can you spot marketing hype and manipulation? When you think a problem through, do you see far enough ahead to measure the possible implications of your decisions? How do you control your emotions, particularly anger and jealousy? How do you control your base desires for food, sex, and intoxication? What does the golden mean or a life of balance mean to you? What does it mean to be kind and compassionate? What are your own pure thoughts and ideas versus what you were indoctrinated by? Start with monogamy and the idea of raising kids. Is it natural to want to be monogamous? What are your best 5 original ideas to make you rich? Why would anyone want power over others? What are good, righteous reasons to seek power over others? All religions say to be modest, yet human nature and the commercial media encourage us to be vain, be a star, shine above others. What is a good level of living between modesty and vanity? Does what happened in the past bother you? Do you worry about the future? Living in the present is best with a plan for future financial security. Do you blame others for your failures? Many reality TV shows show addicted people blaming their shortcomings on either the way their parents raised them or claim to have been both emotionally abused and sexually abused. When does life start? Is it every day when you create it? Why should the past have any effect on anyone? How pure are you in your essence versus how much of you is culturally indoctrinated values? Do you believe the mainstream media has certain biases? Who pays for all the programs you see on TV? Whenever the Jews and Palestinians fight, why are the Jews always portrayed as good guys and the Palestinians as bad guys? Then when I listen to flashpoints at pacifica.org, the Jews are the bad guys oppressing the Palestinians. What is the truth? What is democracy? Do we have democracy now? Do politicians represent you or their friends, campaign contributors, and allies? What are your best 3 ideas for how to improve the world? What's in your soul? What is your greatest vision for the human race? How can you live every day to be as happy as you can be? How can you be a stellar specimen of humanity for you, not necessarily to please others? What does it mean to be a citizen of the world? Should you forgive others for disrespect and other transgressions against you? If you forgive, does that mean you trust them again like before? Is it better to be a patriot for your country or to be a citizen of planet Earth? What is your true nature? Are wise people loudmouth know-it-alls? Why or why not? If you're wise, should you care about impressing others or what they might think of you? Do you save money for financial security? What is your natural state of thinking? What do you think that is all you in your pure state? Think about your own thinking. Do you have thoughts that are more emotional than logical? Where does morality enter into it? What would you say is dysfunctional thinking? What about tolerance for others? How far do you go with live and let live? Where does it stop? For me it stops with evil people who commit cruel acts against other people and animals. I believe we should have the death penalty for those people. Do you agree with me or think I'm too harsh? Is there something spiritually and psychologically wrong with people who want power over others, who want attention from others? Is there something wrong with seeking fame for its own sake? What do you do every day, day after day, to live a great life? What is self-respect? How do you earn it? What is inspiration? How do you get it? What is vitality? How do you get it? Chapter 4. A Critical Mind/A Critical Thinker. Critical Thinking Guide. We learn little by little, rehearsing what is already known, then adding new knowledge when it supersedes or nullifies what we already know. When we learn something that rejects existing knowledge, we take the new idea and eliminate the old. Pure critical thinking means to consider a problem or situation totally on logic and reason, but this only works purely for the hard sciences. In real life, people, groups, religions, countries, and ideologies all have different viewpoints. You cannot take a question like what caused World War II and come up with one pure, objective answer. You will have thousands of answers, each side thinking they're right. There is a human factor of absolute morality. In some human situations there is no relative answer. No matter what, it is not right to kill, rape or rob. An average critical thinker gathers the facts and analyzes them from his own point of view. A good critical thinker gathers the facts and analyzes them from his own point of view plus the point of view of others. For example, if I was investigating why Israeli military forces routinely kill unarmed Palestinians, I would take the official knowledge from the Israeli government but also go talk to the Palestinians to see what they say. Critical thinking is based primarily on particular skills such as observing, inferring, generalizing, reasoning, evaluating and reasoning. Critical thinking is analyzing statements using logic, intuition, and emotional input. There is one base set of skills for critical thinking in any situation. Every field has certain facts, assumptions, principles, and skills that are a part of it, so in order to think critically in that field, you need that knowledge. Inductive critical thinking generally means you take a bunch of knowledge, think it through to come to generalizations and truths. Deductive thinking is to have a bunch of knowledge and from that, come to conclusions about specific facts. This is how detectives solve crimes. They use a lot of knowledge to prove one or two things. The objective of critical thinking is to find the truth. A good critical thinker has these attributes. Skeptical attitude. Asks probing questions. Intrinsic love of knowledge. Well-rounded liberal education. I've read several critical thinking books. I find them kind of phony because they are mostly academic bullshit. Some are in the education section of the library, the #370s. Some are in the philosophy section, the 100s. The field of psychology also devotes a great deal of verbiage trying to explain how we think, #150-159 at the library. If you're looking for a book to help you think more effectively, avoid the psychobabble type ones and go for one that tries to be as practical and down to earth as possible. I can't explain critical thinking much beyond gathering the facts in any situation, then analyzing them to come to a solution based on logic alone plus another solution based on logic plus your emotions about it and the impact on the people involved. I have what I call natural intuition that makes me think I'm a wise man. I credit that to two things. 1. Learning the reflectional review process at the age of 17 in a philosophy class, which is learning to think logically using facts only. 2. Discovering my true identity as a human being, which is my true nature. After that, I felt I always knew the right thing to do in any situation that required straight-up thinking. I can consider facts and situations without my own bias, from the point of view of all the different players involved. It's something you grow into after you learn how to think logically and discover your true nature away from cultural brainwash. A wise man is a pure logical thinker who has the ability to strip the bullshit away from any situation and reduce it down into the few points that matter, considering the point of view of all the people involved and the impact each different solution would have on them. As far as I'm concerned, there is only one standard of wisdom: to do the right thing in any situation based on 1. Logically thinking it through to come to a logical decision. 2. A moral foundation of not hurting innocents. 3. Trying to come to the best solution to appease the emotions of all the people and viewpoints involved. Wise men in all cultures have to live by some kind of standard like this. There is an argument that Western European types are individualistic while Asian people are community-oriented. Asians may come to conclusions that favor society more often than Europeans, who seem to favor individual rights over duty to society. Even still, they still have to have a moral base that favors doing the right thing for humanity as a whole. A critical thinker, according to conventional thought, is a reasonable, reflective man. I notice that every social science discipline assumes that a philosopher and great thinker is a morally good person. They're wrong, because many great thinkers are evil people. They can think the highest thoughts of humanity, but they use them to serve their own selfish ends, not for the good of humanity, as virtually every philosophy course in college concludes, that high thinking always equates to virtue and ends up as goodness. That's why I think a lot of society's knowledge is bullshit. It's a lie to assume that the results of higher order thinking is to become a virtuous human being. Underneath all our big thinking, we are still animals ruled by emotions. A mild philosophy professor will get angry if the alpha male macho man moves in on the girl he is interested in and could easily do something violent. His high ideas from years of reading philosophy cannot make him a totally logical Mr. Spock of Star Trek kinda guy able to control his emotions totally. It's really noble for all these philosophical intellectuals to say the end result of deep thinking is to become a stellar, moral, upstanding, responsible citizen, but it's self-serving. All these philosophy professors are trying to give themselves some game/charisma by implying they're advanced philosopher kings, always ready to do the right thing, but I don't buy it. They're still self-centered hedonists like me by nature, even if they think they triumphed over their true natures through thinking deep thoughts. In my opinion, within academia, they've overanalyzed the simple truths of the human condition within the social sciences to the point of absurdity. You can only go so far in philosophy, yet every new graduating class of PhDs thinks they have to prove themselves, so they come out with new garbage disguised as knowledge. I can't read a current philosophy book anymore because my bullshit detector goes up right after the introduction and stays up until the conclusion. They're the only two sections of the book where they're trying to be real and explain what they're doing. Everything else is the human ego in flight, creating something meaningless and useless. Try hashtag 370.15 or LB 1590.3 at the library. Critical Thinking websites. criticalthinking.org, 800-833-3645. absoluteastronomy.com/topics/critical_thinking. AmericanPressInstitute.org, Critical Thinking Checklist. criticalreading.com/critical_thinking.htm. criticalthinking.com. criticalthinking.net. criticalthinking.org. criticalthinkinginternational.org. flatworldknowledge.com. Critical reading websites. Learn how to read so that you are not swayed by non-logical, persuasive, emotional, and manipulative writing styles. criticalreading.com, critical reading and effective writing. ed.gov/database/eric_digest/ed3638669.html, teaching critical reading through literature. Literary criticism websites. Literary criticism is at number 809 at the library. ipl.org/div/litcrit, literary criticism. ipl.org/litcrit, the online literary criticism collection. librariespot.com/litcrit.htm, literary criticism. ipl.org/div/litcrit, literary criticism, IPL. Writing a critique/critical writing. lrc.sierra.cc.ca.us/writing-center/litcrit.htm, guidelines for writing a literary critical analysis. ccp.rpi.edu/critique.html, writing a critique. Chapter 5. The Spirit of Education. The Super-Duper Learning Machine. I live to renew myself every day. I'm a super intellectual because I stimulate my life every day. Start with a positive attitude to learning. Believe that you are the super champion power intellectual of the world. Whenever you learn for the first time, say to yourself, I will master this knowledge, then review it over and over again. An easy way is to record it in a podcast and take it with you when you go for a walk. When you first start to read, listen to or watch something new, do something to make that information more memorable to you. You could draw it in a mind map or set it up as a multimedia presentation on your computer. Learn the way you like best, visual, auditory, or physical, actually doing something with your hands. You could use a combination of all three learning styles. Explore the subject because you want to for the fun of it. You are curious about life and the world. This is what you do. Other people rush through their studies so they can plug into meaningless, frivolous pop culture crap or hang around bullcrapping about nothing in particular. You are the son or daughter of Zeus, the god of the heavens. Your destiny is to be a wise, noble, enlightened human being. You will learn everything in school, then when you're ready, you will do important things to help humanity move forward. Don't be like the generic people who are not interested in examining their thoughts and feelings and are not interested in what is going on in the world. You are a stellar specimen of the human species. It doesn't matter if you live in the midst of rednecks and mooks. Don't be a know-it-all around them. You don't have to say anything to them. You stand on the same stage with all the great thinkers throughout history, from Aristotle through to Da Vinci and Tesla. Honor them and the God that created you to be a great thinker and a creator of great ideas by doing it and living it every day. Most of the people I'm surrounded by are into hockey games, video games, and pop culture entertainment. I have nothing much in common with them. Why bother trying to relate to people who will never understand that our obligations as human beings are to think up the deepest, most profound thoughts that we can? When you realize you have an intrinsic thirst for knowledge and your destiny is to live your life as a Renaissance man or woman, you got the attitude that should get you through any school program anywhere. Degrees and trophies don't matter. It's a lifestyle. You have an active mind. Respect it by using it every day to be a noble philosopher king. Learn by loving what you do, doing what you love. Love life by living a healthy lifestyle. Read my health book or find a bunch at #610-619 at the library. There are mental stimulation books at #155-158, psychology, and #370-379, education, at the library. Read my book A Free Spirit's Search for Enlightenment because it will help you realize that you are your true nature, and the more true you are to it away from the brainwash of the world, the more enlightened and wise you will be. Learn for the fun of it. Try new things. If you fail but like to do it, keep doing it, fail better. The ultimate purpose of life is to discover your true nature, use it to earn money to pay your bills, then do something positive, inspired, good to great if you want. Be conscientious, don't do stupid things. Avoid anything that could cause a brain injury. Avoid anything that decreases blood flow to the brain. Obesity, stress, smoking, alcohol, all drugs, all toxins, around everywhere. Wet paint, as in painters breathing this stuff. Chemotherapy. Bad foods. Sex play involving asphyxia. Be physically and mentally active. Sleep more than 6 hours a night. Get outdoors for at least 15 minutes once every 3 days during the day to get sunlight. Eliminate sugar and pasta. Eat vegetables, fruits, nuts, and seeds. Don't overeat anything, even healthy foods. Too much food has to be digested and causes a buildup of waste in the body. Stay away from unhealthy people, unhealthy as in physically, mentally, and spiritually sick. Exercise or simply have fun moving around. Listen to music. There have been a bunch of psychobabble type studies done that found that you don't learn anything in a vacuum. When you learn music or dance, it strengthens your whole brain. When you learn anything, you create new neural connections. When you do not learn anything new for long periods of time, the brain stagnates. It loses neurons. People say take supplements and vitamin pills like fish oil. I don't, but they only cost a few bucks, so it's not a big deal. I read and write because I'm naturally curious. I say it's no big deal to start a free website at weebly.com just to keep your mind and inspiration flowing. Create ideas. Simply start writing. The mind-body connection is natural, intuitive, and real. When I was a young intellectual, I intuitively knew I had to exercise and be physically active. Then I went to college, and when I got into grad school, I was surrounded by a bunch of nerdy-looking wimps. They all acted like intellectuals, but truly wise people aren't nerdy wimps. They're strong and dynamic people. I can't judge what people do for work, but try to find interesting, challenging work. Computers are good and fun and all that, but you can do totally frivolous things with them that don't stimulate your mind. On top of that, there is a healthy limit to sitting in front of a computer. Laugh, enjoy yourself while learning. If something is funny, have a good laugh. Learning is not just verbal. You can draw by hand or play around with free artist software like GIMP.org. Avoid becoming a packaged clone living by the system's formal knowledge. All knowledge except the hard sciences and math was created by man, so you can critically analyze a lot of it and reject it. For example, everybody says we have a subconscious mind. I say it's a big fat piece of bull. My conscious mind is my total reality. I don't hide anything from myself. It's an easy way for so-called therapists to make money by pretending to uncover this phantom mind inside of you. The only certainty is change. Change stimulates your life. A frisky, playful attitude is positive and good. Too much material excess takes you away from trying to live a moral, noble, purposeful life. All great thinkers don't care about materialism beyond basic comfort. They realize that there is an inner accountability standard that they should honor. Be creative by creating ideas. Write them down. See where you go with it. If you have the time and the motivation, learning a new language is great for the mind. Earn your self-respect every day by doing challenging, inspired activities. Neurolinguistic programming is a fancy term for some bullcrap as far as I'm concerned. As far as learning values goes, an old Indian guy on TV said he went through the 1960s, the civil rights movement, drug and alcohol addiction, etc., and now he knows the unwritten rule of life is to have reverence for it. Never take more than you need. Do not buy frivolous things even if you can afford them. Do not waste electrical energy even if you can afford it. It's a sin to life to take more than you need in anything. Even if you can afford tons of cute clothes, don't buy them. If you can reach this value in your life or teach your students to live by this standard, that would be greatness. Learn happiness by becoming the person you were created to be. Do this by constantly releasing the natural energy in your free spirit. Learn self-reliance by reading My Money and Green Living books, or go to number 640 and hashtag 660 699 at the library. If you truly want to lead people, master yourself first. Learn to control your angry thoughts. Learn about life in the world by listening to talk radio. Computer books are at hashtag 001.0 to hashtag 005 at the library. Read business books at #650-#659 at the library. Be a good listener by being interested in what others say. Think out of the box by not allowing yourself to get sucked into other people's boxes of life. Chapter 6. Education /Education Ideas. Education 1. Education is not a preparation for life, education is life itself. I thank God there are no free schools, and I hope we shall not have them these 100 years, for learning has brought disobedience and heresies and sects into the world. And libels against the best government. William Berkeley of Virginia in 1671. The journey of an interesting life is to go from not knowing to creating your own ideas. A mind stretched to a new idea never returns to its original dimension. Oliver Wendell Holmes. When everyone thinks alike, nobody thinks much. D. Dickinson. All truth goes through 3 stages. First it is ridiculed. Then it is violently opposed. Finally it is accepted as self-evident. Schopenhauer. Nothing that is worth knowing can be taught. Oscar Wilde. You can't teach anyone anything. You can only help them bring out what is already inside of them. My schooling not only failed to teach me what it professed to be teaching, but prevented me from being educated to an extent which infuriates me when I think of all I might have learned at home by myself. George Bernard Shaw. The mediocre teacher tells. The good teacher explains. The superior teacher demonstrates. The great teacher inspires. William A. Ward. A teacher affects eternity, he can never tell where his influence stops. Henry Adams. Teaching should be such that what is offered is perceived as a valuable gift and not as a hard duty. Albert Einstein. The only source of knowledge is experience. A good engineer works within the constraints given. A great engineer questions the constraints and gets fired because the constraints serve a policy need higher than mere science or reality. Bob Frankston. Life is not measured by the breaths we take, but by the moments that take our breath away. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world, the unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable. George Bernard Shaw. The burning of an author's books, imprisonment for opinion's sake, has always been the tribute that an ignorant age pays to the genius of its time. Joseph Lewis. Professor Goddard does not know the relation between action and reaction and the need to have something better than a vacuum against which to react. He seems to lack the basic knowledge ladled out daily in high schools. 1921 New York Times editorial about Robert Goddard's rocket work. When making a decision of minor importance, I have always found it advantageous to consider all the pros and cons. In vital matters, however, such as the choice of a mate or a profession, the decision should come from the unconscious, from somewhere within ourselves. In the important decisions of personal life, we should be governed, I think, by the deep inner needs of our nature. Sigmund Freud. The heart has reasons reason never knows. Pascal. All visible objects, man, are but as pasteboard masks. But in each event in the living act, the undoubted deed, there, some unknown but still reasoning thing puts forth the moldings of its features from behind the unreasoning mask. Captain Ahab in Moby Dick, Herman Melville. What we call education doesn't open minds, it screws down the lid. The only thing that interferes with my learning is my education. Albert Einstein. Education is what remains after one has forgotten everything he learned in school. Albert Einstein. Awaken people's curiosity. It is enough to open minds, do not overload them. Put there just a spark. Anatole France. I know that most men, including those at ease with problems of the greatest complexity, can seldom accept even the simplest and most obvious truth, if it be such as would oblige them to admit the falsity of conclusions which they have delighted in explaining to colleagues, which they have proudly taught to others and which they have woven thread by thread into the fabric of their lives. Leo Tolstoy. Normal people try to conform and reasonable people do not conform and look for alternatives. Therefore all progress belongs to unreasonable people. George Bernard Shaw. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. Arthur Schopenhauer. Most secrets of knowledge have been discovered by plain and neglected men than by men of popular fame. And this is so with good reason. For the men of popular fame are busy on popular matters. Roger Bacon, 1220–1292. Mystery creates wonder, and wonder the basis of man's desire to understand. Neil Armstrong. The universe extends beyond the mind of man and is more complex than the small sample one can study. Kenneth L. Pike. No pessimist ever discovered the secret of the stars, or sailed to an uncharted land, or opened a new doorway for the human spirit. Helen Keller. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Leonardo da Vinci. The philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point is to change it. Karl Marx. Wrong does not cease to be wrong because the majority share in it. Leo Tolstoy. At his best, man is the noblest of all animals, separated from law and justice he is the worst. Aristotle. Hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world, it is appeased by love. This is an eternal law. Buddha. I have striven not to laugh at human actions, not to weep at them, nor to hate them, but to understand them. Spinoza. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves and wiser people so full of doubts. Bertrand Russell. The scientist only imposes 2 things, namely truth and sincerity, imposes them upon himself and upon other scientists. Erwin Schrödinger. The ideals which have lighted my way and time after time have given me new courage to face life cheerfully, have been kindness, beauty, and truth. Albert Einstein. The laws of nature are but the mathematical thoughts of God. Euclid. I am one of those who think like Nobel, that humanity will draw more good than evil from new discoveries. Marie Curie. Religion is regarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by the rulers as useful. Seneca the Younger. If civilization is to survive, we must cultivate the science of human relationships, the ability of all peoples, of all kinds, to live together, in the same world at peace. Franklin D. Roosevelt/FDR. Since philosophy is the art which teaches us how to live, and since children need to learn it as much as we do at other ages, why do we not instruct them in it? Michel de Montaigne on philosophy of education. The wise man must remember that while he is a descendant of the past, he is a parent of the future. Herbert Spencer. Education quotes 2. Exploration really is the essence of the human spirit, and to pause, to falter, to turn our back on the quest for knowledge, is to perish. Frank Borman, astronaut. Only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. JFK. Success in any endeavor requires single-minded attention to detail and total concentration. Willie Sutton, bank robber. I keep 6 honest serving men, they taught me all I knew. Their names were what and where and when and how and why and who. Rudyard Kipling. They call it coaching, but it is teaching. You do not tell them it is so. You show them it is so. Vince Lombardi, Sr. The fate of empires depends on the education of youth. Aristotle. Children today are tyrants. They contradict their parents, gobble their food and tyrannize their teachers. Socrates, 420 BC. The intellect, which has been disciplined to the perfection of its powers, which knows and thinks while it knows, which has learned to leaven the dense mass of facts and events with the elastic force of reason, such an intellect cannot be partial, cannot be exclusive, cannot be impetuous, cannot be at a loss, cannot but be patient, collected and majestically calm, because it discerns the end in every beginning, the origin in every end, because it ever knows where it stands and how its path lies from one point to another. John Henry Newman. The idea of a university, 1852, p. 138. It don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing. Duke Ellington. Make everything as simple as possible. But no simpler. Albert Einstein. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin. 20 years from now you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bowlines. Sail away from the safe harbor. Catch the trade winds in your sails. Explore. Dream. Discover. Mark Twain. Thinking leads man to knowledge. He may see and hear and read and learn whatever he pleases and as much as he pleases, he will never know anything of it, except that which he has thought over, that which by thinking he has made the property of his own mind. Pestalozzi. Education, to catch up, keep up and get ahead. You will never truly feel good until you reach your true potential and release that natural energy every day. Every day is a great adventure to a wise man. Silver and gold will rot away. But a good education will never decay. You can't outsource getting an education by hiring someone else to do it for you. Creativity is the most important, least important thing people never pay any attention to. The truth is far more powerful than any weapon of mass destruction. Mohandas Mahatma Gandhi. No one was ever yet a great poet, without being at the same time a profound philosopher. For poetry is the blossom and the fragrancy of all human knowledge, human thoughts, human passions, emotions, language. Samuel Taylor Coleridge. In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Neither a lofty degree of intelligence nor imagination nor both together go to the making of genius. Love, 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 that is the soul of genius. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. No man chooses evil because it is evil, he only mistakes it for happiness, the good he seeks. Mary Wollstonecraft, Vindication of the Rights of Women. Fantasy, abandoned by reason, produces impossible monsters, united with it, she is the mother of the arts and the origin of marvels. Francisco de Goya. Most of the fundamental ideas of science are simple and can be expressed in a language comprehensible to everyone. Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Albert Einstein. Metaphysics is universal and is exclusively concerned with primary substance. And here we will have the science to study that which is, both in its essence and in the properties which it has. Aristotle, 340 BC. When forced to summarize the general theory of relativity in one sentence, time and space and gravitation have no separate existence from matter. Albert Einstein. What we observe as material bodies and forces are nothing but shapes and variations in the structure of space. Particles are just common appearances. Erwin Schrödinger. Can we visualize a universe which is finite yet unbounded? The supreme task of the physicist is to arrive at those universal laws from which the cosmos can be built up by pure deduction. Albert Einstein. There is nothing more necessary than truth. One does not want to be deceived, under the supposition that it is injurious, dangerous, or fatal to be deceived. Friedrich Nietzsche. If religion is the establishing of a relationship between man and the universe, then morality is the explanation of those activities that automatically result when a person maintains a relationship to the universe. Leo Tolstoy. Although I am fully convinced of the truth of evolution, I by no means expect to convince experienced naturalists. But I look with confidence to the future naturalists, who will be able to view both sides with impartiality. Charles Darwin. Mankind has tried the other two roads to peace, the road of political jealousy and the road of religious bigotry, and found them both equally misleading. Perhaps it will now try the third, the road of scientific truth, the only road on which the passenger is not deceived. Professor Garrett P. Service. The free, unhampered exchange of ideas and scientific conclusions is necessary for the sound development of science, as it is in all spheres of cultural life. Only the individual can think and thereby create new values for society, nay, even set up new moral standards to which the life of the community conforms. Albert Einstein. We are shut up in schools and college recitation rooms for 10 or 15 years and come out at last with a bellyful of words and do not know a thing. Ralph Waldo Emerson. He who steals my purse steals only trash. Iago, Shakespeare's Othello. Our highest endeavor must be to develop free human beings, who are able of themselves to impart purpose and direction to their lives. Rudolf Steiner. The world of letters is the true world of bliss. Abraham Abulafia. Nothing in education is so astonishing as the amount of ignorance it accumulates in the form of inert facts. Henry Brooks Adams. A statue lies hid in a block of marble, and the art of the statuary only clears away the superfluous matter and removes the rubbish. The figure is in the stone, the sculptor only finds it. What sculpture is to a block of marble, education is to a human soul. The philosopher, the saint, or the hero the wise, the good, or the great man very often lies hid and concealed in a plebeian, which a proper education might have disinterred and have brought to light. Joseph Addison. I consider a human soul without education like marble in the quarry, which shows none of its inherent beauties until the skill of the polisher fetches out the colors and makes the surface shine. Joseph Addison. Education may work wonders as well in warping the genius of individuals as in seconding it. Amos Bronson Alcott. Observation more than books, experience rather than persons, are the prime educators. Amos Bronson Alcott. His lack of education is more than compensated for by his keenly developed moral bankruptcy. Woody Allen. Man must either make provision of sense to understand, or of a halter to hang himself. Antis thence. All who have meditated on the art of governing mankind have been convinced that the fate of empires depends on the education of youth. Aristotle. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Aristotle. The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living from the dead. Aristotle. The roots of education are bitter, but the fruit is sweet. Aristotle. Those who educate children well are more to be honored than parents, for these only gave life, those the art of living well. Aristotle. Culture is to know the best that has been said and thought in the world. Matthew Arnold, Literature and Dogma. Real education should educate us out of self into something far finer, into a selflessness which links us with all humanity. Nancy Astor. Histories make men wise, poets, witty, the mathematics, subtle, natural philosophy, deep, morals, grave, logic and rhetoric, able to contend. Francis Bacon, Essays of Studies. For were it not better for a man in fair room to set up one great light, or branching candlestick of lights, than to go about with a small watch candle into every corner? Francis Bacon, The Advancement of Learning. A child cannot be taught by anyone who despises him, and a child cannot afford to be fooled. James Baldwin. It is very nearly impossible to become an educated person in a country so distrustful of the independent mind. James Baldwin. Education commences at the mother's knee, and every word spoken within the hearsay of little children tends towards the formation of character. Hosea Ballou, Sermons, a Manuscript. The fruits of the earth do not more obviously require labor and cultivation to prepare them for our use and subsistence than our faculties demand instruction. Isaac Barrow. The test and the use of man's education is that he finds pleasure in the exercise of his mind. Jacques Barzun. The aim of education should be to teach us rather how to think than what to think, rather to improve our minds, so as to enable us to think for ourselves, than to load the memory with the thoughts of other men. James Beattie. Education is only like good culture, it changes the size, but not the sort. Henry Ward Beecher. It was the German schoolhouse which destroyed Napoleon III. France, since then, is making monster cannon and drilling soldiers still, but she is also building schoolhouses. As long as war is possible, anything that makes better soldiers people want. Henry Ward Beecher. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Authentic journalism is telling people something that the government doesn't want them to know. Gary Webb. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it, or who said it, no matter if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. Buddha. Those who know the least obey the best. George Farquhar. The founding fathers in their wisdom decided that children were an unnatural strain on their parents. So they provided jails called school, equipped with tortures called education. John Updike. A school is a machine that transfers information from the notes of the teacher to the notes of the student without it passing through the mind of either. If you want to understand life, don't think about vibrant, throbbing gels and oozes, think about information technology. Richard Dawkins, The Blind Watchmaker, 1986. True education is what's left after you've forgotten all the useless stuff you learned in school. School days are full of dull, unintelligible tasks, new and unpleasant ordinances and brutal violations of common sense and common decency. H.L. Mencken. I recognize June by the flowers now. I used to know it by review tests and restlessness. Teenager in Growing Without Schooling magazine. Of all knowledge, the wise and good seek most to know themselves. Shakespeare. An investment of knowledge always pays the best interest. Ben Franklin. There is only one good, knowledge, and one evil, ignorance. Socrates. Much learning doesn't necessarily lead to wisdom. Your great learning is driving you mad. Festus to Paul. Acts of the Apostles 26:24. I never let school interfere with my education. It is not enough to have a good mind. The main thing is to use it well. René Descartes. Only the educated are free. Epictetus. The human mind, once stretched to a new idea, never returns to its former dimensions. Oliver Wendell Holmes. Ignorance causes fear. Education makes a group of people impossible to enslave. Knowledge of life is the beginning of happiness. When the great innovation appears, it will almost certainly be in a muddled, incomplete and confusing form. For any speculation which does not at first glance look crazy, there is no hope. Freeman Dyson. If you think knowledge is expensive, try ignorance. We're running around looking for knowledge but drowning in information. Wise men store up knowledge. Proverbs 10:1. A wise man is strong, a man of knowledge increases strength. Proverbs 24:5. He that increases knowledge, increases power. He who knows where knowledge is has it within his grasp. Nothing in life should be feared, only understood. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach him to fish and he eats for life. Anyone who stops learning gets old. Anyone who keeps learning stays young. The greatest thing in life is to keep your mind well. If money is your hope for independence, you'll never have it. The only real security that a man can have in this world is a reserve of knowledge, experience, and ability. Henry Ford. Education is what you get from reading the fine print. Experience is what you get from not reading it. Education one-liners. Be active. If it is meant to be, it is up to me. Learn from your mistakes. They are learning experiences. Always seek out new knowledge and do challenging things. An obstacle is a challenge to overcome. Challenge is what personal development is about. You will never feel really good unless you do tough things that make you feel proud of yourself. Learn to be a stellar writer who clearly states his or her ideas. Learn cognitive and analytical skills. Be creative. Solve problems as a matter of course. Critically evaluate arguments, assumptions, abstract concepts, and data that may be incomplete to achieve a solution or identify a range of solutions to a problem. The four categories of cognitive skills are: analysis, synthesis. Students can collect and categorize ideas and information in a predictable and standard format. Evaluation. Application. Do whatever you like, as long as it works for you. Find your natural strengths and use them. It takes courage to discover your strengths and power. Education quote website / education quotes websites. lcwords.com, life-changing words, wisdom, and strength from the Bible. goodreads.com / quotes quotations page.com / subjects / knowledge. learningquotes.com. afterquotes.com / great / quotes / knowledge.htm. wisdomquotes.com / cat_knowledge.html.